Greetings and welcome, everyone. Welcome to episode 63 of the Lot Carry Women in Service Everywhere digital couch. My name is Doriel and I am your host for the evening. So, on behalf of our leadership, our Lot Carry leadership, our executive secretary treasurer, Reverend Emmett L. Dunn, our president, Dr. Jesse Williams, our first vice president, Dr. James Victor, our second vice president, Dr. Robert Scott, and for the Women in Service Everywhere team, it is Reverend Dr. Brenda McBurrow, who is our president, Sister Lynette Richardson, first vice president, Minister Brenda Troy, second vice president, and our youth department leader, Minister Stephen Edmonds, as well as our Men on Missions team leader, Brother Charles Monterio. We welcome you to our broadcast this evening. A little housekeeping for today. This is May. Welcome to those people who are joining us live. Also, make sure that whatever platform you're watching us on, let us know the city and the state that you're watching us from. We want to encourage people, if you have not already done so, to sign up for to registration for our session this year. We will be in the ATL. We'll be in Atlanta, Georgia. So we're so thankful and looking forward to gathering once again with everyone. In addition, when you let us know what platform you're on, and again, shout out your church, please let us know your name. We do want you to engage in the conversation this evening. If you are going to share this, please share it on the YouTube side. It's easier that way. On the Facebook side, it's a private group. So unless you're in, you're not in, and you won't get the notifications. In addition, this conversation tonight is going to be slightly different. It was pre-recorded to make sure that all of those who could make it, if you know what I mean. And so we're going to have a slightly different session this evening. So I do look forward to you hearing and being able to engage. I will be live though. I'm live. I'm live. And so you will actually see me engaging in the chat. So if you're going to be, especially on the YouTube side, I'll be able to give you a shout out or ask questions or help you process some of the information. So tonight we are going to be continuing our conversation on the theme of, does exclusion equal exploitation? Over the last few months, we've taken a look at that topic. If you remember, I think it was 2 months ago, we started with conversations with some of our brothers, some pastors, some ministers, and asking the question, how do women fit in the church leadership? Are they utilized for their skills that just focus on them being a support or a help? Or are they actually actualized in their position of the calling that they were given? And so we had some of our brothers in ministry who addressed that from their perspective. And then last month, we had some women who are in leadership speak about breaking glass ceilings or breaking down doors, not just pulling up a chair to the table, but making their own table in some situations. And tonight, we're going to add on a different layer. So, not just those who are in ministry alone, but the person that we're going to speak with or hear from tonight is someone who is in ministry and also in academia. As you have seen on the flyer, we're going to be hearing from a conversation that myself and Reverend Dr. Terry Ann Smith, who is Associate Dean of Institutional Assessments. She's also the Associate Professor of Biblical Studies. She's the Director of the Certificate Program at New Brunswick Theological Seminary. And so let's get ready to hear the conversation that I had with her just a few days ago. Dr. Terry Ann Smith, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. First, tell us how you came to Lot Carry, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Oh, well, first of all, Sister Doriel, thank you for this invitation. I appreciate you not just because of the work you do, but just because of who you are. So I appreciate that. And I've been with Like Carrie now. It's got to be 27 or 28 years. And I wanted to serve and was allowed to be a classroom manager, even though that was a very short period because there was a different need. We were still recording and putting people in classes by hand. You know, the little stick, 1, 2, 3, 4, mark them. That's how we were loading the classes. And so I do have a background in systems design and information system design. And so I put my skills to use, and we sort of automated that process, which has been even more automated since then. But for most of my 27, 28 years, that's what I did. And then probably about, I want to say 6 years ago, maybe, I was asked to become one of the facilitators. And that is because I also have a teaching, right? So my role as a professor, right, was asked to relinquish my duties as the registrar for mission studies, and to take on a different role and become a classroom facilitator. And so that's what I've been doing now for the last, I want to say 6 years, but I'm getting old, and it could be
Wait,
it could be a little bit longer. Yeah.
Well, the easiest way to count that is it before Rona or after Rona? Like, when did you start?
I started before.
Okay, so we're talking 2019, 2018.
And one of the things that I was able to do was, the experience that I brought was that during Rona, right, I was already familiar with teaching in an online environment, which was something that was going to be a value added.
Correct.
For the convention, right? Because we were going to take our courses online, take the mission studies online. And so I had already had background into the instructional design around doing online learning. So it was a easy fit.
Excellent. So now talk to us about the academic side of your life, and how you even came to that as an individual, and then as a Black woman in the religious academic space.
Oh, okay. So I was originally a member of Fountain Baptist Church with Dr. Jerry Sanders. And I accepted my call to ministry there. And one of Pastor Sanders' really requirement for his ministers, and we call them MITs now, but he called them lay ministers. And it was that you needed to have some sort of seminary training. And that took me to, first, a certificate program, because I really wasn't feeling the whole call to ministry. So I wasn't really feeling the whole call to ministry.
You're going to get some learning.
Get some learning. I, started off at a Fountain had a certificate program at the church. They were at one time a satellite for Palmer, although it's not. It was called Eastern. I think it was Eastern Baptist something, and then it became Palmer. But anyway, so that satellite campus brought me into the classroom, and then it was just not enough. My hunger for a deeper critical inspection of the Bible, that program was not enough, which brought me into New Brunswick Theological Seminary. where I left my job. I took literally follow me, follow me. That whole leave everything behind. I took that literally, and that's what I did. I retired, took a package from AT&T where I had been working for 21 years, and I left there and went to seminary, thinking that once I was done and got my Master of Divinity degree, that I was going to come back into the church and be a part of the Christian education ministry.
Hmm.
That's where I saw myself. Uh, so I graduated in it was 2002 in May, and found myself in a PhD program in August of 2002. Oh,
You
thank you.
walk across the stage, said bye to the bursar, and you walk right back in a couple weeks later.
It's like, God, what's going on? That's not what I thought you were sending me here for.
Wow. Okay.
And so and how many at that time, uh when I was coming in 2002, there were still only a handful of Black PhD women in Hebrew Bible.
That's exactly what my next question was going to be. How many other people were in your class?
So the folks that I had, as if you want to, they weren't mentors, but they were role models, was Renita Weems,
Mm,
right? So because she
of
was
course.
Hebrew Bible,
Understood.
and there so there weren't that many Black women with PhDs in Hebrew Bible.
Mm,
And then somewhat discouraging was to have a white male tell me at one of our academic conferences that you're going to be it's going to be real hard for you to get a job as an academic. Even though he would acknowledge, that that being a Black female may have given me a little edge
mhm.
because I'm a part of a minority group, right? There's so many few Black female Hebrew Bible scholars.
Okay.
Um, and so I that's sort of I had that. That's what's in my mind, is that I'm spending all of this money
And what
for
am I
the
really
degree.
doing?
What am I going to really do with it?
Hmm.
But I do want to believe that there was some divine intervention in there. And so even after I actually came out of Drew, that's where I did my
Okay.
PhD work in 2011, and came back to the seminary where I got my MDiv. And they brought me on as initially as an adjunct professor. And they then sort of, the doors just opened. And then I became a part of the regular faculty, uh, overseeing, again, my courses are in Hebrew Bible, Old Testament. We have various names for that. So, and eventually, as we were going through one of our self studies for accreditation, um, my background in process management, because by then I had like a bachelor's in Bachelor of Science in Management, a master's in Information Systems, and now I got a master's in philosophy, and all of these nice degrees, which I think is, paper in the bathroom wall. But it's really nice. But the main purpose was that here it is, all of this education, and I'm like, well, what am I doing with it, right?
Right.
Because I'm still saying I was called to be serving in the church, serve a
Mm,
church. And God was saying, yeah, you are going to do that, but you're going to do this first. And so the process background with my 21 years with AT&T, they needed, in my institution, needed someone to oversee their assessment activities and
Okay.
assessment in terms of assessing their programs. And so I became that person. So in addition to my role as a faculty member, I also then took on an administrative role, which I was then promoted to the associate dean. And
Wow.
so that's where I've if you want to say, hung my hat now for the last, I don't know, what is it, 13 or 14 years in at this institution. And thanking God that that's where I belong, in terms of helping pastors and lay people, right? Because in terms of the students who come before me, to as we would say, think critically, act justly, and lead faithfully. That
Hmm.
that is what uh, has been my passion and continues to be my passion in helping to shape uh, how the church, how the church and those who are active leaders in the church think about how they represent the word of God in ways that are life affirming,
Okay.
in ways that uh, take account of the intersections of race, class, and gender. How do we, if you want to talk about the patriarchy, and how do we sort of help them meaning the church, and the church has come a long way, but it still has a long way to go uh, in trying to unpack that, and how to do that in a way that is just for all of us,
Hmm.
just some of us.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And so again, I'm always interested how people, let's say, start at their starting point with their plan, right? And then how God sort of redirects according to his plan what he wants you to do for him. And so one of the questions that I have for you is, um, when people hear your name, do they first regard you as, oh, Dr. Terry Ann Smith, the preacher, right? Or the pastor? Or is it Dr. Terry Ann Smith, the academic, right? The dean, the facilitator on the campus. So I'm like, let's say, am I going to her for a soul searching, or am I going to her for research direction? Right? In the academy. I just came up with that. Somebody write that down, right?
So it really really depends. So if you're in a academic environment, then folks aren't going to necessarily recognize me as the preacher. They're going to say, oh, okay, I've either sat under her as a student, uh, or I know someone who has sat under her as a student. um, but then when I'm in a church environment, because I'm married to a pastor, and so it's sort of a mixed thing, because when I'm in church, they don't recognize me as the preacher unless I'm preaching, which is
Mm,
really interesting to me. Is that, oh yeah, they folks remember that, yeah, God did call me to preach too. So it's a it when I'm in academia, it's no recognition as a preacher. But
wow.
but outside of academia, um, and depending on where, because our church is in Newark, and so some folks will say, okay, I know her husband
Mm,
because he's well known. Uh, and then maybe by extension, I'm, if they're watching a YouTube video or something and they see me preaching, something like that. And then it's to me is an amazing thing that it depends on where you are hearing my name. And some folks have never heard my name, and that's okay too. Be
But
like,
sometimes
and
the
who
less
is
that they know
you?
about you, the less responsibility you have to like take on, the less tasks you have to do.
I, I, I am perfectly comfortable uh, saying and continuing to say whatever door God opens, I walk through it, and wherever God wants me to do whichever one of these gifts He's given me, whether I'm teaching or preaching, then I am comfortable in either of those spaces. But I don't necessarily have to be known.
Mhm.
Uh, but I know that there are some folks who know me, if that makes any
It
sense.
does. It does. So let's stay on that just for a second. You've actually answered a part of this question, but I want to name the thing. I want to like name the tension. So you're a scholar of biblical studies. You have talked about for to an extent of being welcomed according to, let's say, your identity, that of being in the preacher space when you're in that physical space, and then as well as your research and your intellectual contributions. But then you also shared about, I guess, in the naming or not naming, the exclusion of your other role. If you're in the academic space, you do have the preacher uh, layer as well, and or pastoral authority in spaces. How do you respond when, let's say, someone only names you in one and doesn't name you in the other? So again, the focus is on like the exclusion of, let's say, your full layered self, and how
Mhm.
that can be an expression of exploitation. Like they'll recognize you for one, but then use you for another, and then not give you the recognition for that.
So so here is I guess the dilemma that I would say I find myself in is because um, how folks want to some folks want to be very dismissive.
Mm,
So it is not about exploitation to me in that sense. It is the failure to recognize or refusal to recognize the achievements in either one of those spaces. So it is not like when I go into, if I'm at an academic conference, we're not walking around talking about Dr. Anybody, right? We're there to present our work or support others who are presenting their work.
mhm.
Yeah, it's only when, let's just say, you come to a conference like Lot Carey, and you walk around, or the whole name tags with the titles, and folks will, unless you are in that space where they are, if you're in the room with them, uh, I believe they could care less. And I hate to say it like that, but I yeah, I don't think it's important,
Mhm.
and nor do I find it important if I'm in that space where, am I Dr. Terry or am I Reverend Smith,
Mm.
right? Because that's usually the distinction is, are you Reverend Smith or are you Dr. Smith? When in fact, I am both.
Right, right.
So when I enter that space, I am Reverend Smith and Dr. Smith.
Okay.
And if I'm in church, it is the same thing. I am still Reverend Smith and Dr. Smith. Now, what I will say I will take exception to in the church is if someone calls me Sister Smith, and call me Sister Smith, and call my fellow minister, uh, who is male,
Mhm.
will call him by his title.
Yes. Right. That's what I was trying to get at. Like how do you how do you respond tactfully, right? With grace, with class, with elegance, and sort of set people right like, excuse me, there's a doctor there. If he has a doctor, we sat in the same class, I'm a doctor too.
So how I tend to handle it is I will gently pull a person to the side and sort of remind them
Mhm.
that women have had to pay a heavy toll to be called reverend or doctor anybody.
Right.
And because of what we've had to endure to be able to get those titles, I think I've kind of earned the right to not be Sister Smith.
Amen.
Um, yeah,
Right.
and and how and how folks receive that is how they receive it.
That's on them. That's on them. That's on them. Be educated. Continue to educate yourself.
Yeah.
Continue to recognize all of so right. Continue to recognize all of the titles that we have, all the titles that we wear, and the titles that we will answer to. So yes, when
So, and it's because what we've had to do is we wear. It's not and I want to be clear that it's really not about the titles, though, in the sense that we wear multiple and carry multiple identities.
Mhm.
And so it is these multiple identities that some people will choose to acknowledge
Mm,
and dismiss other identities. And yet the spaces that we're in said you can't dismiss them, because
correct.
who's that person praying for you, right? Who is this person who, if you're going to, if you're in the academic space, I'm still praying, right? If you need to have someone talk to you about the classes you're going to take and need someone to oversee your dissertation or your project, uh, who is that person? Because that's not Sister Smith that's doing wearing that hat. And
Correct.
so part of it is not necessarily for me, not necessarily titles, as much as asking folks to recognize and affirm the multiple identities that we as Black women come to the table with.
Right. So
We
of
don't, we
course,
don't get to segment them, right? We don't get to partition them. It is who we are. And we bring that whenever we walk in a room. It all comes with us, all of it.
we have to interject uh, Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw of giving us the phrase intersectionality. So,
Mhm.
Dr. Crenshaw, if I ever get to speak to you, I'm saying it here first. I'm looking forward to it. So now I fully understand this term and how important it is that, yes, whether you want to call us a rose, which again has many layers, or whatever analogy you want to use, when Black women walk into a door, those people who know, make sure you let other people know. This person has not multiple personalities like it's a descent,
Mhm.
multiple identities that even though they may be, and I'm not saying like you walk into Walmart and somebody needs to call you doctor, like it, right? But when you are in the place and space where identity has influence and impact, somebody write that down. Yes, all the
I,
titles need to be fully identified.
yes. And one of the reasons that I think it's important is because uh, how other people embrace us as we walk into that space, right? Depends on how others are willing to say, okay, this is who this person is, right? So if they don't acknowledge that, if they don't see that, um, then it becomes part of the dismissing
Right.
or dismissing marginalization, however you want to. I would even say it would get back to exploitation, right? It would get back to that because it's okay. You can recognize that what I'm providing for you, right? You whether you're in the academy, you're going to be paying somebody to do that. And you certainly are going to call your white male professor doctor. A student asked me one time, "Can I just call you Terry?" No, you may not.
High five. Thank
No,
you.
no, you may not. And it's not because I'm so focused on a title, but when you start to think that we are at the same level,
Correct.
then you also don't think that there's anything that I can contribute to your educational journey.
Correct.
So no, you can't call me that.
Correct. I actually have a professor that to this day, and we're literally talking more than 40 years ago. And Dr. Teresa, if you're ever watching this, I'm saying this is you. And I said, oh, okay, Dr. So and so. She's like, oh, just call me Teresa. I said, Dr. Teresa Amirati. There we go. Just call me, Teresa. I said, I'm, I cannot. I am raised in a household. I'm raised in a Black Baptist community. I will not. You're no longer my professor, but I will not. I will still call you Dr. Amirati. But yes, I feel that. I feel that power in that term because it does wield a level of, again, influence and impact and study and research and respect and all those things, and to continuously let people know, as we're raised in our community, you need to put a handle on that. You can't just call me the first name unless there's a level of relationship in a private space.
Mm-hmm.
As
Yes,
the title does not matter while we're sitting having tea.
exactly. Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you permission first. But in a public space where there are other people around, I'm always going to deflect to that title. Okay.
And particularly if you are willing to do that, when you will have no problems. And I don't know why this is. It just could be a mentality thing. I don't have a good answer for this. Is that when women come into the room and there's men there, men who
Mm,
have power, who have titles, it's very easy to recognize the power and influence that they have when they
mm,
walk into a room and disempower you. Now, mind you, there are some women who walk in the room and that's never going to happen. You're going to always call them
Dr. So and so,
Dr.
Reverend so
whoever,
and so.
right? You're going to call them by that. Uh, and that has to do more so, I think, with name recognition because of, if you're out there, if you're in that space a lot, there's some name recognition that comes with that. But for some of us, it's not name recognition, and folks are very what's the word? It's not a dismissive kind of thing. It's a I don't know you kind of thing. I've never heard of you kind of thing,
Mm.
right?
So it's almost like you have to step in the room and the individual needs to step in the room and say, this is my title. And as our parents would say, if you call me out my name, I'm not going to respond. So if you say sister so and so, I'm going to keep looking to the right, or looking to the right, because you must not be speaking about me because you didn't give me my handle, right? So, oh, Dr. So, hi, how are you? Good to meet
So, so what I have found, that's not the work that I need to do. Because if I do walk into a room where I know other folks, uh, and folks don't know me, that the folks that I do know who will address me with a title, right? So I guess it works itself out eventually. Um,
It almost feels like it's a flow of the moment, a flow of the room, right? If you walk in the room and there's somebody who doesn't know you and they just presume, oh, this is so and so, and I'm there, immediately I'm going to say, oh, this is Reverend Dr. Terry Ann Smith. Use what you need to use. Now, if you step over that and you call her something else, I'm going to say, this is Dr. Terry. And I just had to do that with someone a few days ago. So I'm glad that I can be supportive of keeping the intersectionality at the forefront and making sure that your role as the Black woman, Black person, and the female in the room recognize that you are an academician, you are a clergy, and your title needs to say that. And I'm actually saying that in addition, as a teacher, when I teach, let's say some other grades who have been highlighted in the past, few days and few months, namely Reverend Jesse Jackson. So my students said, "Oh, Jesse Jackson." I said, "No, this is Reverend." Every single time you say his name, you say Reverend Jesse Jackson, and they're looking at me like, "Oh, but he's a man." Reverend Jesse Jackson, and they got it because it's he's not just a man.
And so but sometimes folks will hear this and they'll listen to our conversation and say, oh well, we're spending a lot of time talking about people and their titles. Well, I would say no, we're not really talking about people and their titles. I think what I would say is, what the argument that I want to make is that this distinction is how it is very easily for folks to dismiss women who have these achievements, right? It's very easy for that to be dismissed if we don't have a brand, if we don't have, if you see what I'm saying, if we don't have name recognition, very easy to dismiss that. And yet I did something for another group, and again, I'm always amazed how you could be the female in the room, have a male counterpart with you, and the male will continually reference the male by his title after you've been introduced as whomever, doctor, reverend, whatever, and still get relegated to sister.
So let's and I thank you. I thank you for sort of reiterating that, because as people continue to hear it prayerfully after this conversation, they will be more cognizant to affirm using the influence and the impact of the title with women at the same level, at the same
I
at the
think
same level as we do of the men that they know who hold those positions.
to me, I think it is affording them a degree of respect.
Yes, and that's the focus.
That you afford them a degree of respect, and someone said, well, you know what, that's a cultural thing. Well, that's probably why we need to keep talking about it, so that this can now be your new cultural thing. That you can be a new cultural thing for you. Yeah, but still, in all, Sister Doriel, I'm not going to correct too many folks. In an academic space, now in a church space, I'm probably more willing to do some correction, only because the patriarchy in the church is so pronounced, that if you don't speak that truth in that space, it's already normalized to be dismissive. If I'm not the pastor, and again, we've made great strides. We have female pastors, and yet when you're sitting under a male pastor as a female minister, or in this case a professor, it becomes somewhat challenging to get folks to be like, okay, how are they thinking about those women who are sitting under them? How are they thinking about that? And how do they communicate to their congregations? Even more importantly, how are they communicating that significance to their congregations? Just simply in how they get referred to.
So that actually that helps us get to this next part of the conversation, which is intellectual contribution, which we've talked about, versus the ecclesial, excuse me, recognition. So we've talked about, like, in your experiences, how, or I guess I'll frame it as a question: how does the church benefit from women scholars' theological work while still maintaining structures that limit their leadership and voice in the pulpit? What impact does that disconnect have both on the academy and the church?
So let me just see if I can make sure I've captured that very long question, right? As the academic in a religious space, right? What contributions, and this is, I think, the question I'm hearing, how is that contributing my contributions, whether, and when I think about my contributions from the academy in a religious space, it has to do around teaching. It has to do around scholarship. If I'm doing a Bible study, am I preaching? All of that comes, that in terms of what I'm doing in the academy, is now manifesting itself in how I'm communicating the word in a religious space. I have not so far ran into any kinds of, if you want to say, roadblocks or anything when it comes to doing that, right? Whether I'm preaching or whether I am teaching. So I haven't I haven't felt any sort of angst in trying to bring that into, bring the academy into the church, because I still believe that the idea is that it is not a one or the other, it's a both and, right? That the messages, when you're talking about crafting messages that are going to allow congregations to be not just heavenly minded, but justice oriented. And how do we do that in a way? That is what the academy does for me when I can go into a religious space and put the two together. Take theory and application and bring them together. I don't know if I'm quite answering the question the way.
You are, you are, you are, you are. So we're gonna shift into our
I want to mute because there's somebody cutting, I
cutting
think,
grass.
cut grass outside, and I just want to think they're.
So we gonna talk right over it.
Everybody's like, as long as it's not a distraction. Yes.
Not at all. So we're going to shift into our final question, and that's about reclaiming authority and shaping the future. So, as a woman who shapes minds in the seminary and influences future leaders, what must shift so that women are not only cited in research, but are also respected as authoritative voices in preaching, teaching, and leading the church?
So to me, what needs to shift is, for when I think about who is it that we read when we're doing research. Who do we read?
Good one. Okay. So wait, people, start, take notes, because now she's gonna be dropping books. Okay, take notes.
I'm not going to drop books, but what I'm saying is we don't look for, in terms of how we research, we don't put on our reading list or ask the question, what Black women are writing on this subject. We don't ask the question, what women, period, are writing on this subject, right?
Let's go.
So if I'm thinking about what needs to shift, if we're sitting in the academy and we're not exposing our students to the contributions in terms of scholarship that Black women are contributing to that knowledge base, then shame on us. right?
But wait, but then so that's a cycle. That's a cycle. In my mind, that's a cycle. So let's say I could say, uh, Dr. I could say Dr. Terry Ann Smith, hey, g- what are like three? What are like three of your top books that you would pull that would be women writers? And I'm
And I'm
sure,
sure.
you know, Dr. Renita Weems, right, or something that she's written, or and then like you name two other books. In my head, because I haven't gone to seminary, who knows, right? But in my head, I'm thinking there's a publishing house, so that needs to be women have to be instructed, directed, empowered, encouraged to write. It needs to then you need to then find a publisher who is interested in supporting, elevating, promoting women's
Mm-hmm.
scholarly work. You need to have mentors to guide that scholarly work with the intersectionality of the women, of the gender and the race and all the other things lens. And then you need to have people who will be like, well, why should we listen to a women writer? We already have this like behind you, right? This stack of books. Why do we need another? So there's so many layers that for someone who's not embraced by a woman's collective, whatever name you want to give it, to say, yes, we need more female voices. We need more Black spiritual and, all of that, all of those
Mm-hmm.
in there. So there's so many layers that would have to come before you get additional text. Now, I don't know
But,
how many
but,
there are,
but
but
here's
there's all
but,
that.
here, but here's where I would say that even if you aren't a person who was in seminary or being exposed to that, you're hearing preachers who get up and they quote if they're preachers who are scholars in their own rights. I don't hear too many of them quoting no Black women when they're doing their research, when they're going through, well, here is what this person said about this. What I hear is them quoting other men. I
Okay,
hear
wait a
quoting
minute.
other white men on top of that.
Hold on. But for those people who are watching this, whenever you watch this, I hope you watched the first two um, episodes prior to this. So that would be episode 61 and 62, where we had Bishop Leah Daughtry and Gabby Cudjoe Wilkes, who spoke on, and one of the books that I remember is Carla Lewis. I believe I'm saying her name right, Carla Lewis. And then there was another, The Woman's Midrash,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So they were quoting those texts. And then when I spoke to in episode 62, pay attention to the compendium, episode 62, when I talked to our Reverend Tisha Dixon Williams, and she also relayed some texts that were written by women. So please just go back. I try to put those texts in the comments that this is, at least in the Lock Carry space, we're trying to continue to build these texts. And we had a book talk about 2 years ago, if it
Mm-hmm.
weren't for the women,
They weren't for the women, and
right?
and so
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 I'm excited.
so women are doing that work.
Yes.
That's the thing, and again, yeah, you would expect us. It's a poor frog that doesn't praise his own pond. I'm sorry. This
I love
this
that proverb. I love it.
so women are going to do that work because
Right.
we know the contributions that we're making. My critique, if you'll accept it, is that this should not just be us.
Don't worry about
And my front door is open.
it. It's okay.
But it should not just be us.
Right. Everybody should be doing it.
Because again, our male counterparts, who there are a lot more of them in the pulpit than there are us, right? And I'm speaking as the preacher now, not as the academic that says when I go and I listen to messages that black male preachers will preach
Mm,
on women, texts that have women in them, and will quote male
got it.
males talking about these texts when there's plenty of females who have written on them.
Got it.
So that's, so how do we, you're at, the question was, how do we, what
What
in
needs
terms
to
of that
shift?
future and what needs to shift? That needs to shift.
I agree. I agree.
because because again, if there was a way I get rid of that, because again, there is a way. It sound like he's right outside my window.
Don't worry. Here, put
What?
yourself on. That's fine.
Just
Hold on. So to uh, 1 second. So to everyone else, just while we're waiting for the noise to dissipate, this is a conversation again with Dr. I'm sorry, with Dr. Terry S. Smith, uh, who has again a multiplicity of layers of identities and responsibilities, and she speaks not just from, let's say, the book, but from the holy book, but she speaks from the academic book, and brings all of these, again, Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, these intersections of her identity to this conversation to make sure that people recognize, if you exclude the voice of Black women and just relegate it to the support and the serving, you miss the spiritual power that God has gifted that Black woman to be the speaker of the word, the discerner of the word, and I'm just coming up with this, but this is on my heart. Uh, um, and that person that God has gifted that woman to be, to serve the entirety of the person, not just the body and giving them some food, right? But the mind and the spirit as well. Look at that. See how I wrap that up? All right, Dr. Terry S. Smith, whenever you want to come back on is perfectly fine.
yes, here's where I would say the devil is a lie. When I pop outside my window,
Because it's
right, and
getting good. It's getting good.
try to make this claim, it says so. When we're thinking about, we from the perspective of the church, to do that kind of marginalization and exploitation is it's been framed, um, limits the church, right? Because all of the gifts of the body to the body are needed,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if certain voices, certain particularly if we're talking women, Black women in particular, if those identities are not recognized, are not given space for us to be who our authentic selves are in those spaces, that hurts the body in general, right? Overall, it's the body that suffers when we're not operating in our full gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is what ultimately, if we're looking to strive toward this, what does it look like? What does it need to look like? Um, yeah, we still have work to do. And if on the side of the academy, then I see part of what I'm doing is helping to build those. I'm not trying to build walls. I'm trying to build bridges. And how do we then make this a bridge, right? That we're crossing together. We're crossing it together. You don't get to go first. I'm sorry, you don't get to go first, and then think I might be able to cross. How do we go together? So
How do we go together? Thank you so
hopefully hopefully it's helpful. I rant and I rave a little bit, but ultimately, hopefully, I answered most of your questions.
You did. This is exactly what we're here to do, to sort of, unfurl, unpack, delve in. I like to say, like, the 4 Ds, to discuss, dialogue, diatribe, and debate even, right? That's what we're here to do on the digital couch. So, as we close this powerful conversation, one truth is clear that when the church excludes the voices of women, it does not protect tradition, it diminishes its own witness. Tonight, we've heard from Dr. Terry Ann Smith. And if you look at the compendium, the last three conversations, we've heard from women and leaders who refused to be silenced, who stood firm in their calling, and who preached anyway, and taught anyway, and led anyway, who served God faithfully, even when systems did not fully affirm them. And because of that courage, the church will be stronger. This conversation not only reminds us that exclusion is not just a missed opportunity, but it's a misuse of the gifts that God has already given. But when we
Mhm.
make room, real room for every called voice, we begin to see the fullness of God's design for ministry. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Terry Ann Smith. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
your academic and your spiritual gifts here on the Digital Couch.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm waiting for you to.
I know. To everyone who's still with us, thank you so much. We are appreciative of your patience and your understanding. Thank you so much for joining us. And we totally look forward to seeing you next month, where we'll probably have a similar conversation with another great person to talk about, does exclusion equal exploitation? Thank you so much for joining us.